I want to address three specific statements that have been made on the floor of the Senate by my friends on the other side of the aisle that are, with all due respect, patently false. Leader McConnell came to the floor either last night or this morning because it was reported in the Washington Post and said, quote, "We don't have to worry because, quote, Congress always does what is appropriate when it comes to disasters." Mr. President, I don't even know where to begin to say how false that statement is. And I know that the leader didn't mean to mislead anyone. He just made a comment like, don't have to worry about this. We always do the right thing. Mr. President, I was there for Katrina and Rita. This Congress did not always do the right thing. There are still things that Congress should have done in the aftermath of Katrina and Rita that have not yet been done, and there's a whole list of things that were done by this Congress, but 2 years too late or 3 years too late. So let me be very, very clear with people following this debate. Congress does not always do the right thing when it comes to disasters, and we're about ready to make another mistake. And it is so unnecessary and so unfortunate. Number two, there's a disagreement going on about whether this is politics or principle, and I know that our side has said, and we believe there's got to be politics involved because there's no other reason to explain why the House Republican leadership continues to throw a wrench into this when it is completely unnecessary. What is the principle that they're fighting for? If it is a principle, the only principle I could think of is the principle of when things are going smoothly, blow it up. Because that's what they're doing. What do I mean by that? Let me take a minute to explain. As the Republican House leadership knows full well, the Senate and the House have already agreed. We agreed 30 days ago. We agreed before Hurricane Irene, before Tropical Storm Lee, before these storms ever happened. The leadership, Republican and Democratic leadership, agreed in the big fight that we had over the whole meltdown, not of the government, but of the shutdown almost of the economy. We remember that, Mr. President, don't we, that big fight we had? In that negotiation, the leadership of both houses, Republicans and Democrats, already agreed in anticipation that we would be running short of FEMA money because we have been running short of FEMA money now for 8 months. In anticipation of this, they said in that agreement, we are going to carve out an $11 billion approximate pot of money or cap adjustment so that when we come to ask for disaster aid, we won't have to fight again. Why do we like to fight so much? I mean, I can fight, I do fight, but I choose not to. What is the principle the House Republicans are fighting for? It only must be when things are going smoothly, let's blow it up. That's why I'm so frustrated. It's an unnecessary fight to be having. Now, let me say, to answer specifically the senator from Arizona, who I have a lot of respect for, we did not pull this sum out of the air. This $6.9 billion, which is much more robust than the $2.6 that the House wants to provide, is a much more accurate estimate based on actual numbers given to the Appropriations Committee, which is a committee of authority here, by the agencies who are the agencies in charge of the disasters, from agriculture, from the Corps of Engineers. So our number, the 6.9 that's being ridiculed as just being pulled out of the air, no, contraire. It was given to us by the agencies. The number that came from absolutely nowhere, that has no bearing on any sense of reality today, is the number the House pulled up, which is last year's number, which was the estimate before the storms even hit. So if you want to argue which number is more accurate, please put your money on our number, because you will lose this bet. Our number is based on actual estimates that have already been made of disasters that have already occurred. We have a list, here it is, a list that's literally too thick to put into the record, and I'm not going to ask for it to be in the record because somebody will have to stay here like for days and type it in, and I'm not going to ask the clerks to do that, but I want to hold it up so people can see. I mean, this pages and pages and pages of projects that are stopped right now. And I want to say directly to the senator from, the House member from Alabama, Adderholt, who's the chairman, my counterpart, there are pages of projects here in Alabama, in his own district, that are stopped. And he is not helping by supporting last year's number for this year's disasters. Do you know what Tom Ridge said about this, who's a Republican, the first guy, ran the Homeland Security, first secretary? He said, never in the history of the country have we worried about the budget around emergency appropriations for natural disasters. And frankly, in my view, we shouldn't be worried about it now. We're all in this as a country. After a hurricane, a tornado, we now have to have a knockdown, drag-out, full-fledged debate on how we're going to pay for every single penny before we can give a green light to these governors and mayors and county commissioners. I think it's outrageous. It's unnecessary. And it is so terribly unfair. But everything moves us. The agreement that's already been raised, the precedent of history, the accurate estimates of the disaster, but yet the Republicans want to fight about it. I think it's a bad fight for them to have, let me just say. And it is really a shame. But we're going to do our best to get immediate and full funding. And if we can't, we'll be back here in 6 weeks talking about it again, which is very unfortunate because you can't rebuild Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Joplin, Missouri, and parts of North Dakota, Minot, North Dakota, and small towns in Alaska and Alabama 6 weeks at a time. You just can't do it. And when we have the money, we have the provision, we have history and precedent on our side, and the need is so great for the Republican leadership to throw a wrench just because they like to keep things stirred up is really a shame.